What's up, Packers fans? Aaron Negler here with Cheesehead TV, ready to talk some football with Andy Herman from the Pack a Day podcast and purveyor of fine Packers takes everywhere you go along these internet parts. Andy, how are you? How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Didn't get to celebrate a victory Monday this week, but that was a heck of a performance by the defense. There was a ton of really positive takeaways from that. And I think if you would have said that, in any game this season, Green Bay scored 7 points and you still came out of it feeling pretty okay, I think that was probably one of those odd games.
A very, very odd game. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball. We'll lead with the good. If it bleeds, it leads. Does not exist here at Let's Talk Football.
There you go.
But, I mean, has kind of, I think, I know people who break down the tape and actually go back and watch the game are probably very aware of this, but I think in all of the narratives around this game, obviously the performance of Jordan Love being the headliner, but something that I think has kind of gotten lost here, especially in light of the fact that they did play so well on defense, is the defensive line and the guys who had to step up because of injury, whether it was coming into the game, knowing that Dean Lowry's on a pitch count, things like that, and then losing Kenny Clark 20 some snaps into the game. I thought TJ Slayton played a hell of a contest, and you finally saw Heflin get involved. I think if you look at everything else going on in this game, that has kind of been, to me, kind of the underreported or least discussed aspect of, you talk about things you can take away that are positive. I really like what those guys put on tape.
I completely agree. TJ Slayton was somebody who immediately kind of jumped off and impressed in that moment. And, we've said forever, Aaron, if Kenny Clark goes out, look the heck out, because,
Right.
the depth behind him just isn't the same. And there's just nobody quite like Kenny Clark, certainly on the roster, that can do what he does. But I thought TJ Slayton stepped in and played about as well as he could possibly be expected to play, given that situation and circumstance. As you mentioned, Heflin was in there, Lancaster, Lowry on a pitch count, no Kingsley Kiki. You just kind of had to fit things together. And I think that's just one of the few things that Joe Barry and this defensive staff deserves a ton of credit for this season is we saw against San Francisco a couple NFC championship games ago where, it didn't even matter if Kenny Clark was in there. They didn't have the size and the strength and the speed and the athleticism and everything. And just enough big bodies up there playing
Right.
all the light nickel and the dime situations against heavy run teams. They just didn't have the people that could hold up at the point of attack. And you see Joe Barry has a larger emphasis on making sure that, the defense is balanced against what the offense is bringing. Obviously having a player, or really two players in this game, like Devondre Campbell and Chris Barnes behind, who not only are getting to the football, but have some ability to actually fight off blocks at the point of attack, certainly helps things as well. I could not be more impressed with that front seven and how they performed, especially sans Kenny Clark for a good portion of that game.
And I'm not sitting here saying that TJ was like, a world beater.
Correct.
There are plenty of times where his pads are high and he kind of gets washed out. But I think, especially, you have to think he probably wasn't in the game plan as far as playing as much as he did. But man, for his first kind of real extensive action in place of Kenny, I thought he held up really well. And to your point about the linebackers, it's kind of interesting to me that, Campbell coming off being awarded the NFC Defensive Player of the Month. For him, I thought he had not his greatest game. I thought
Agreed.
there were times where he was a step late or maybe misdiagnosed or couldn't get off a block. Barnes, however, more than picked up the slack. I mean, I think I'm not going to say he was trending downward, but Chris Barnes had not been a guy I was really kind of enamored with the last 3 or 4 weeks. But golly, he really came to play on Sunday.
Yeah, those are the sort of flashes that he shows every once in a while, and it gets you really excited. And of course, the name of the game is consistency and being able to do that week in and week out. If all of a sudden he can take a step in that direction, that would be huge for this Packers defense. I'm glad that it seems like they're more solidifying it with, obviously Devondre is going to be the one. It seems like Chris is going to be the two. Warren Burks is going to be the three and have some specific roles within that as well. I really like that rotation and how they kind of have it evened out now. No harm in foul and trying out a Jalen Smith. Didn't work.
Right.
They moved on. Great. No harm, no foul. But I really like how those guys are playing together. And I think that, sometimes in the course of a season, especially when you have a 17-game season, you have to try different puzzle pieces just to see how it fits together and how it unlocks different things. And I think sometimes just testing those things out are really important. And I think they found their solution in what fits perfect at linebacker so far now.
I love you mentioned Orm Burks. I love that the guy played 4 snaps, and 2 of them were really notable in that one, he makes a great play in the flat earlier in the game, and you're thinking, "Yep, here we go. Oh, Oren Burks. Okay, Oren Burks getting involved." And then later on, he has the false,
Offsides.
the offsides penalty that negates the interception. It's probably only thrown because it's a free play, but it's like I would have thought coming out of that game, like, oh, I'm really interested to go and see how Burks did out of these, outside of those two plays, but he only
There's
played
only
two
two
other
other ones.
snaps.
Yep.
So I'm with you. I'm glad they've kind of solidified that rotation along the interior. And I tell you what, if you got to think this probably a bit of an anomaly for Campbell. If he gets back up to his regular level of play and Barnes can bring this, I mean, that play to deny the ball, the running back getting into the end zone there, that's one of the best, cleanest, hardest hits I've seen from a Packers defender in years.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's not often that you see a running back have momentum towards the goal line and the linebacker just, completely stops him dead. And
I
it's
mean, how many
exciting to
times have
see.
we seen guys just get blown through there? Just
Yeah.
like pushed right through, like kind of tossed aside, like you're nothing. And Barnes made sure he was like Gandalf, man. That cat was not going to pass.
And one of the things that's difficult, I think, for younger players coming into this league, and we've seen it linger for some players over time, but is figuring out the right size and weight to be at for your specific position and what the team's asking you to do. There's a lot of talk this offseason of Barnes kind of lowering his weight a little bit to play quicker, which I think has shown up on tape. But a lot of times you do that, you play quicker, but you can't hold up at the point of attack where you can't level a player like he did on that play. It seems to me that he has sort of found his perfect form and found a size and a speed and a strength that works well for him. And when you can find that, I think it is just going to make your life so much easier as you're trying to find your way as an undrafted linebacker in the NFL.
We talked about Slayton getting thrust into action along with Heflin. Um, I was really impressed with Chandon Sullivan in this game in the sense that you have Eric Stokes go out in pre-game warmups. You have to
Yep.
think that affected the rotation, obviously. I
Yep.
would suspect with Kevin King back, Sully probably wasn't slated to play as much as he did. And it's really unfortunate. I know I saw the thing posted on social media, and like those are the ignorant fans that we can completely ignore. But man, I think on balance for that game, for a guy who probably wasn't practicing all week as part of the main rotation, I thought he did some really nice work.
I'm afraid to ask, but what was the thing posted on social media?
Oh, he put it up there. Somebody like told him to kill himself because he slipped and allowed that final third down completion. Like I said,
Well,
these are the idiots that you can safely ignore.
and listen, there are two people on earth maybe that can cover Tyreek Hill, if that long on that sort of
Right.
play,
And
like
for that long.
for that long.
Exactly.
And it's so stupid.
It's beyond
But
stupid. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But no, I think he's honestly been one of the more quieter surprises. And listen, sometimes, and it's really easy to get caught up in like, is this player a star? And if they're not a star, then they're a bum or they're just a
Right.
guy or whatever. There is so much value in players like that who have played consistent football through the course of the season. Yeah, they're going to have some completions completed on them at times, but the good far outweighs the bad. And I feel like Chandon Sullivan's sort of a poster boy for that type of player. Not everyone on your team and on your defense is going to be a star and making interceptions and breaking up pass plays. But if you can have consistent, solid coverage for a good portion of the game, and oh, by the way, be a above average tackler for a cornerback, I mean, there's a ton of value there. And I think Chandon proved that this past week and has been, frankly, proving that for the vast majority of the season.
Very much agreed. All right, since we have to, let's switch over and talk about the offense and the play of Jordan Love and the problems keeping Jordan Love upright. And look, I'm glad that Matt has taken the tack publicly, at least that he has, in the sense of really kind of falling on his sword and saying it's on me in regards to just not having a plan or an ability to change course, so to speak, when it became really obvious that Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, was just going to blitz the hell out of Jordan Love come hell or high water. And we've heard a couple of people mention this. AJ mentioned this on Carry the G last night. You know, in the league, if something works early on, their teams are going to continue to do it until you stop it. And the Packers never, ever showed any ability to either, block up whatever it was the Chiefs wanted to do pressure wise or make them pay for it. And obviously, that's a product of having a very young quarterback making his first start and just not having the tools at his disposal that, say, a 3-time MVP would.
No, well said. And I think There have been times where you can tell that Matt LaFleur is coach speaking and saying, you know what, that's on me. I got to do
Yep.
better as a coach to deflect and just take away blame from his players and stuff like that, which is awesome, which is what a coach should do. And I appreciate that about him. This one felt more real and more legitimate, and he backed it up on multiple occasions. And I think there's truth to it. I don't think this is just him falling on the sword and saying, I'll take this one. I think he did have real opportunities to, whether it's better preparing the team, whether it's to have better answers as the game went on. I mean, you can only, I get that one-on-one with Davante Adams is a look that you would like more often than not. But when you've got 1.5 seconds to throw the ball and you're basically a rookie QB making your first start, having to throw off your back foot and just basically throw it up for grabs to Davante Adams on multiple occasions, or expect them to be on the exact same page on a back shoulder play on a 4th down, and that's your best option. I'm not saying that was always the case. There were options that Jordan had at time. There were plays where he could have been more accurate with the ball. Nobody's saying not, but you have to have better, easier solutions for a quarterback making his first start. And I thought just the inability for the offensive line and really the coaching staff as a whole to make some of the adjustments where you've got guys coming free in the A gap and the B gap, where I don't care what quarterback you are, what start you're making, you have that happen and it's going to be a major problem. I actually do think that even though teams can't live and die by doing this against Aaron Rodgers, I do think there is some things that Steve Spagnuolo put on tape where whether Aaron Rodgers is quarterback or not, if they don't figure out how to fix some of that stuff, it can be a major problem. Because as great as Davante is on the outside, a lot of times he likes to kind of get into his route a little bit. It's not, sometimes it's a very clear one step.
There's not an instant win waiting for
right.
Yes,
but he likes to work because he likes to see how the corner reacts to him and then use that against him and then take off. And if there's a guy in your lap at 1.5 seconds, again, I don't care if you're Aaron Rodgers, Davante's still kind of going through his motions. There's nobody else open. There's not much that you can do against that. So figuring out how to better block those things up and make those adjustments. And again, a lot of that is Aaron being able to communicate some of that at the line of scrimmage as well. So no question about that, but there's a lot of blame to go around here overall.
Oh, and you are spot on, sir. When you talk about, like, it doesn't matter. Aaron will be back. Great. I mean, this week he'll be back without practice. So
right.
that's one wrinkle that the Packers are going to have to work around. But the idea that, yes, the Chiefs not only, came after a young quarterback, but they put a bunch of stuff on tape where the Packers, without the quarterback, had no idea what they were supposed to do up front. I mean, how many times did we see either tackles on the edge or even guys along the interior have to choose between two guys to block and have no answer? Just basically decide not to block anybody.
Multiple times that happened, for real.
That happened repeatedly.
Yep.
So teams are going to look at that and go, wait a second. Now hold on. Yeah, Aaron might be able to burn us once or twice, but if we cover this up right on the back end, we might be able to come after this team a little bit. Yep. So I very much agree with you. I think they are going to be tested starting Sunday with a few more pressures than maybe they've been used to for that very reason. Speaking of up front and guys not knowing what the hell to do, I saw your tweet this morning about Royce Newman, and I know you and I have talked about him on Talk Football before. And yeah, to your point, yes, that was I didn't go back and grade every single play, but I certainly watched. I certainly watched the offensive line on every pass play, and man, that was a rough game from Royce. No question about it. If you're the coach, if you're sitting there and you've got to put the best 5 on the field right now, with the presumption that David Bakhtiari will be back this week, that's what we're hoping. How are you going about it? Are you sticking Newman back out there? Because we've talked about it. I know he's put some really good stuff on tape, no doubt about it. But man, his mental errors, you're good for like at least 2, maybe 3 a week. Yeah. And they always seem to come on 3rd down. They always seem to blow up what could potentially be really big plays for the offense that, because of his miscues, the quarterback, whether it's Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers, are running for their life or having to get rid of the football. Do you stick with him or do you ride him out?
Yeah, I tend to more agree with your assessment of it, where I do think obviously Bakhtiari at left tackle. I'm not moving John Runyon. I think Runyon's been too good at that left guard spot. He certainly, Runyon has earned a spot within the top 5 almost regardless, but I really like him at left guard and I wouldn't mess with him too much. And then of course, Billy Turner is going to be at right tackle. So you've then got, without Josh Myers until he comes back, you've got, Elton Jenkins as one of those two players, either at center or right guard, with Lucas Patrick or Royce Newman being the other. Although I actually quietly did like the 5 snaps that Jake Hansen put on tape
I saw,
this week, bizarrely enough.
right. It was
But
so funny because I didn't realize it in real time, but then when I saw the snap counts, I saw that he had 5 snaps. I was like, "What?" And so I had to go back and watch it. That's
yeah,
that's a
which
good
were
point.
oddly decent snaps. But
Not terrible. Yeah.
I think to me, you put Elton at center, and then you decide each week between do we want to put Lucas or Royce Newman out there at right guard, and that can be a competition each week and figure out what you want to do. Because to be frank, I know Lucas has had to move around a little bit, but this to me, Lucas has been a step down what he was a season ago. I really liked, for the most part, what he was last season. I don't think he's repeated that this year. But I actually, going back last year when I graded Lucas, I thought he was much, much better at right guard than he was at center, than he was at left guard. I thought he struggled almost everywhere else, but at right guard, he seemed to be that seemed to be his spot.
Totally agree.
So if he can sort of re-solidify that right guard spot, you put Elton in at center, keep John Runyon at left guard. To me, that's probably where I'm leaning right now.
Yeah, and look, there's no magic bullet. There's no this is the right answer. I think it's going to be a bit in the eye of the beholder. But look, if there's a staff that has shown repeatedly that they are not afraid to move guys around and put guys in spots, and maybe even for a week-to-week basis, it's the Green Bay Packers. Stenavich, LaFleur, what have you, they make no bones about it. You know, when they say best 5, that's obviously in their eyes. They don't seem to have any qualms about switching it up from week to week, even depending on the matchups. So
Agreed.
I'm very interested to see how they go about that this week. And that's provided Bakhtiari's back, which is no given. I mean, I think he'll be activated, but the way Matt's talking, who even knows if he's actually going to play in this game yet? So,
and when he does play his first game, you wonder if,
how
is he on
much
some
rust
sort of
is
pitch
there,
count?
right?
Is he,
Yeah.
does he, is he just active? But, who knows how they kind of ease that entire process along. But the sooner he can get back to full health, obviously, the better.
Now, provided, I mean, like we talked about, Rodgers most likely will be back for this game against Seattle. How do you think they attack this? Do you think, God forbid, they actually maybe run the ball a little bit more because of the fact that, I know Aaron's obviously played with all these guys and has, tons of banked reps, as they like to say. But do you maybe button it up just a little bit because of the fact that, he has missed basically the last, 10 days and hasn't practiced, and he's going to be kind of, easing back into things. But, he's a 3-time MVP. He can move mountains on the football field. There's no question about it. The man is insanely talented. But do you maybe button it up a little bit offensively?
Maybe, but that doesn't mean that Aaron's not going to change the play at the line of scrimmage and
do
what he wants to do anyway. So, yes, I think there's probably a little bit more of that. And I think there probably is maybe a tendency to lean on the run. I actually want to ask you this, because I almost find myself wondering if 2 running backs is almost too many running backs, because I find myself needing more Aaron Jones, and I find myself needing more AJ Dillon, and I don't know how to, and obviously just running the ball a lot more can maybe solve some of that, but you almost feel like Jones needs to get into a little bit more of a rhythm. You almost feel like Dillon needs to get into a little bit more of a rhythm, and you almost feel like neither of them can totally get there with the existence of both of them on the field. Now, Matt LaFleur's been creative, getting both of them on the field at the same time and really trying to get both of them their snaps and stuff like that, but I haven't figured out exactly how to reconcile that idea right now.
Well, to me, it has to come at the expense of targets for Devontae, which I know is never going to happen with Aaron Rodgers under center. I thought we'd see a lot more of that against the Chiefs because Jordan Love was the quarterback.
Right.
But holy cow, is it so apparent that, okay, Devontae's back. He's our guy. We are going to get him the football. And I'm not saying that, like, he's obviously an insanely talented player and great at what he does, but in the context of that game with that quarterback, I thought for sure we'd see a lot more kind of, screens to the backs or angle routes, choice routes where we get the backs isolated out of the backfield, get the ball. Like you're saying, I don't need them to run it over and over and over again, but get them the football, however you got to do it. But to your point, it is a bit of a quandary because maybe they did. I don't know if they expected AJ Dillon to look as good as he does.
I agree.
Year 2, maybe you thought, okay, he's going to come along. But man, I tell you what, I had a guy who is a scout for another NFL team text me during the Cardinals game and say, has AJ Dillon been the better back all year? Because right now he is the better back. And I was like, he's in a bit of a rhythm tonight. And that's kind of AJ's game. When he gets going, he's hard to stop. When he gets a bunch of carries, he gets in that rhythm. But then it was funny because then later in the game, Aaron started ripping stuff off, and I texted back. I was like, see, this is the thing. Like, you
Yep.
get either one of these guys going, they're off to the races. It's just you got to do it. You got to commit to it. And for whatever reason, they seem really reluctant to ride with the hot hand. They have to make sure they're fresh, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when you've got A.J. Dillon ripping off 5.5 yards per carry the first series he's in the game, and then he doesn't touch the ball again until like late in the first half, what are we doing here? Like, you've got a young quarterback making his first start. He's getting 5 yards every time he turns around and hands the ball off. Keep doing that. Like,
Yeah,
I just think they outsmart themselves sometimes.
I'd almost rather it be like, hey, today's going to be an Aaron Jones game, and and we're going to have
That's
AJ
fine,
Dillon be
yeah.
the
Sure.
kind of the lesser, kind of the just
Yep. The compliment.
the
Yeah,
compliment. Thank you.
sure.
I can't speak words or English very well,
It's
but
great that you're on video with me, buddy. That's why
yeah.
I only the best here at Cheesehead TV.
Absolutely. And then obviously next week say, all right, this is a Dillon game, and Jones is going to be the compliment. So
And I thought we'd see more of that coming
agreed.
into this year. When I was doing Packers Daily in the offseason, I got asked that question all the time. How do you handle these backs? And I said, I think it'll be predicated upon how they view the opposing defense, how they think it's best to attack said defense. This is our plan with this guy. But that really hasn't happened. It's been pieces here, pieces there. And every time they get a guy going, it seems he has to come off the field for whatever reason. So,
And I think this is part of
it's a
figuring
really
out,
mysterious
those puzzle pieces through the course of the season as well. I think they're still trying to figure out, how do we feed Devontae? How do we feed Aaron? How do we feed AJ, while also still trying to get the ball to Lazard and MVS and Cobb? And they have a lot of weapons, and they got to figure out the right rhythm. And I don't think they've quite got there yet.
No doubt. All right. And finally,
don't do it.
It's 3 phases to the game, Herman. 3 phases to the game. We've talked about 2 of them, and now it's time to talk about the special teams. Oh my God. Wow. Okay, so as far as I know, we're taping right now. It's 1:54 in the afternoon on Tuesday, and as far as I know, Mo Drayton is still employed. But I'm telling you what, that performance on Sunday, and I know Matt talked about Mo on Monday, and what he said would suggest that Mo's sticking around, but I would not have been surprised to wake up on Monday to the news that Mo had been let go, because there have been issues throughout the special teams all season long, and finally Sunday it cost them a game. It cost them a game, and these are things that have been kind of bubbling for weeks. Whether it's Amari Rogers' hesitancy as a punt returner, whether it's protection on field goals, all of these signs have been there. And then finally, they all kind of coalesced into a perfect storm of manure on Sunday afternoon.
And here's the frustrating thing. This Packers special teams has been bad for a long time. You start at the bottom, and sort of the idea going in with Maurice Drayton is, well, you can't get worse. However, the one thing that Green Bay has been very good at for some time now has been field goal kicking. It has been the saving grace of the special teams is, well, you know what? No punter, no kick coverage, no punt coverage, no punt return, no kick returner, no nothing. But Mason Crosby and that field goal kicking team is clutch and money, and they are really, really good. And that is the one saving grace. Well, now everything else mostly the same. Bojorquez has certainly been an improvement, and I do think the coverage teams have been better than last year. I don't know how much of a
low bar, but better. Low bar, but better.
But certainly still a below average special teams unit. And now you can't kick field goals because everything in the process, and I'm not saying just everything in the process is broken. The one thing I don't know if is broken or not is anything with Mason Crosby, because they can't get a protection snap and hold to see if actually things are going correctly with Crosby.
Can Mason make a kick? I don't know, because he can't be allowed to kick one, apparently.
Exactly. And I mean, to switch long snappers, obviously, which was probably needed, but that's it's never a great sign when you have to do that midseason. Bojorquez had 2 of the worst holds I had ever seen, and I don't know enough about it to know if that's on the snapper or the holder, but it certainly seems like just flip the ball a little bit, at least had some opportunity to do that.
Dan.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the protection, like I have never, and you've watched football closer and longer than I have never seen a team that just cannot protect for kicks. It is beyond my comprehension.
It's basic, and it's stuff
one-on-one.
That, you're supposed to be shoring up in training camp. In the offseason, you drill it, and this is the thing too. I mean, how much it goes back to this for me. And I always used to kind of go back and forth with McCarthy about this, and he would bristle at it, and I'm sure LaFleur would bristle at it if I brought it up, and I might do that next time he's on transplants. But it's like you get what you emphasize. How much special teams work did you see this summer in training camp? Because I saw precious little,
Yeah,
and
it wasn't a ton.
I saw the specialists come out of the Hudson Center every once in a while, and then they would kick some field goals or work on their lane integrity and coverage. And then there were some, protection stuff every once in a while. But comparative to other training camps where I've been throughout, the league, the NFL, etc., I remember the Eagles training camp back in the day, they would spend like 45 minutes straight, nothing but special teams.
Yeah.
You get what you emphasize. And I understand you have this whiz bang offense and you're installing a new scheme on defense. But man, they have got to batten down the hatches on special teams because right now they are getting what they emphasize, which is really poor special teams play.
And even when we did see special teams, it was more of walk through in theory
Always.
sort of pace.
Yep.
Like there was never any, you certainly didn't see anyone coming through the field goal block line and
right.
just, causing
I do wonder how much, remember the joint practices with the Texans, 3 years ago now, when they had the live, I think it was Matt LaFleur's first year in Green Bay, and they had the live kind of sessions with kick coverage. And that's when there were a couple injuries, fights broke out, blah, blah, blah. And I remember Matt making a joke like, well, I learned not to do that. But I do wonder if maybe he's overcorrected in that regard or kind of shied away a bit too much. Because to your point, it was all walk-through speed. There was nothing even resembling live. I mean, not even approaching live, obviously. Obviously, I don't have the answers. I ain't walking in that door and telling them what to do, but damn, someone needs to. And I don't know I hope Mo Drayton's the guy, but he is in the crosshairs. He's got to be at this point after that performance on Sunday. And I'm not the guy who sits here and calls for people to be fired. You know me. That is not my MO. But at some point, there's got to be some kind of change and or, accountability. Because as I've said, we've seen it all year. It just ended up finally costing them a football game on Sunday.
So Mo Drayton is firmly in the cancel culture crosshairs and the
we were doing so well. We were doing
I know.
So
I couldn't
well,
help
Andy.
myself.
We were doing so well. We didn't reference it. We didn't even acknowledge it. We were living in a world where it didn't exist, and you just tore it. You just threw open the blinds and said, "Here we are." Why you got it? Okay, well, that's a perfect place to leave it then. I can't thank you enough for hanging out and talking football with me, and almost getting through a whole segment without mentioning everything.
I know, my bad. That's on me. I'll take that one.
That's on you. Seriously though, thanks so much, Andy. This is always great therapy, and I can't wait to talk to you again next week.
Let's do it again. Thanks so much, Aaron.